Next one is buying crowns or just engaging with the crown store. Very hard. First, you need a job or some sort of like source of income to buy crowns. So a lot of people have been asking me to do tier lists for ESO. Actually, multiple tier lists from ranging from what are the best classes for PvE, what are the best classes for PvP, and maybe like I don't know in terms of aesthetics, what's the best mount or whatever. So I figured, okay, I'll make you a tier list. In fact, I'll make you a tier list that covers the various activities and I guess things you can do in ESO in terms of difficulty. So on this tier list, we have almost impossible, very hard, somewhat difficult, it's alright, need consciousness, and AFK. All right, so we're gonna go one by one here in terms of category or type of activity you can do. So first off here is gonna be, I guess, Tales of Tribute. Honestly, Tales of Tribute, it's supposed to be a tavern card game. I feel like the challenge really lies in finding the things for the decks, for the new decks, more so than it is actually playing the game. And honestly, I think the game is a lot about mentality. And I feel like that's something a lot of people lack for Tales of Tribute. I think Pink Apple said it best, you have to expect to win to play this game. So I think I'm going to put this at somewhat difficult. Honestly, there's a bit of RNG too involved, obviously because of the nature of the game. So yeah, if you want to play Tales of Tribute, expect it to have somewhat of a learning curve, and definitely a mastery curve. But also, there's going to be some grinding for some of the newer decks. So it's somewhat difficult in my opinion. And you know, if you go ranked PvP or not PvP, I guess it's PvP. If you go ranked Tales of Tribute, yeah, you're gonna probably blow a fuse. I think I get more hate whispers in Tales of Tribute than I get in actual PvP. So yeah, it's somewhat difficult mentally. Alright, so tutorial. I don't know anyone who's failed the ESO tutorial. So it's like the original kind of like tutorial in Cold Harbor, and now I think they have delegated that to the island so tutorial. So I don't know, you can be AFK and you'll probably still complete the tutorial. All right, so let's talk about Overland. And I'm going to talk about base game Overland. So Overland includes a lot of things like, sky shard hunting, locale discovery, discovering way shrines, or, tackling on maybe some mobs or doing the quest lines. And we have more specific categories within the Overland. So Overland, you can totally be AFK. You could just mindlessly kind of like go through the zone and probably not die. And if you do die, well, whatever, just get back up and try again. But I don't know really if I could even say Overland has any semblance of difficulty in it. But yeah, that's basically ES Overland. All right, let's talk about, let's see, Delves. Well, I think Delves fall under AFK as well. I don't know anyone who really has any struggle bus issues with Delves. Now, oh, we have DLC Overland here. Now, you might think, whoa, DLC Overland like Westfield or, I don't know, Morrowind. That might be more difficult than the base game Overland. Just kidding, I lied. It's not. You can be AFK for this as well. But anyway, what about world bosses? Surely they are somewhat difficult, even to solo. Okay, I can kind of see that. I'll put this, you need to be conscious for it. I don't think world bosses, especially in the base game zones, are challenging. Even DLC zones that used to be a bit more, you need to pay a lot more attention to, especially the one in Murkmire, and even newer zones. I don't think world bosses are quite challenging, especially if you build for it a little bit. Some healing, and maybe some kiting, depending on the boss. There are a couple bosses that are going to be a little challenging in terms of like soloing it. So I don't know where to really put this. It's need consciousness. I guess on the safe side, we could say it's All right, so next one we're going to do in terms of difficulty is going to be, let's see, fishing. All right, fishing, I will actually put it above like everything we put in the AFK category. Because fishing, you need to be conscious. You need to actually like see what you're getting. You need to fillet all the things. You need to actually press the button when you catch fish. Is it harder than Overland? Is it harder than Delves? In some ways, mentally, I think it is harder. As someone who went for Master Angler before, they made it easier to get with the, various champion point perks and the fishing foods. I think for sure you need some semblance of consciousness to go fishing, and definitely some mental grit. All right, next one. Let's see. Oh, here's a good one. Crafting. Crafting. You know, I don't know where to put this, to be honest with you. I guess the concept of crafting, or learning how to max out your crafting, or researching, could definitely fall under AFK. It's something that you log in to do every so often. You know, you update your research trait stones and stuff like that. It doesn't really. There's no real learning curve with the crafting system in ESO. You learn about it, you get used to the UI, and then you understand it, and then you just do it for yourself. You don't really need anyone's help with it once you understand what's going on. So you could be AFK. We could be somewhere between the consciousness and AFK. All right. So how about Craglorn? And by Craglorn, I mean I think the Craglorn trials. So I'm going to tackle that later. Actually, let's just get the non-trial stuff out here real quick. Fashion. We have fashion. Honestly, I would say fashion is very hard. I think a lot of people underestimate how hard it could be to make your characters look good, and a lot of people tend to overuse the same motifs or same styles for like the same parts of the body. There have been really popular motif styles, and I feel like you really need to make your character unique somehow in that kind of environment where everyone's using the same thing that makes their character look good. So I think fashion could be very hard, honestly. And of course, you have to grind for style motifs in some form. You have to get the trait stones, or you have to also, hang out at the dye station or outfit station for quite a while until you actually get what you want, or what is pleasing to not just yourself but everybody else. And there are fashion contests as well in the ESO community, so it's not like it's something you can just AFK or just slap on polymorph for, right? All right, so how about, let's see, roleplay. This is gonna be a controversial hot take here, but I'm gonna say almost impossible. So there's two things about this. Roleplay, or at least a lot of the overland roleplay scene died after Homestead patch because everyone got their own housing. But also, it takes a lot of imagination. It takes writing skills to an extent. It also takes, again, vivid imagination to actually roleplay, and also to do that in a setting where you interact with other humans. Most ESO players don't have that imagination, so I'm gonna put this almost impossible. You might have figured out by now. Maybe this video is partly roasting some people too. All right, so yeah, I would definitely put roleplay at almost impossible. For sure, for a lot of people. A lot of people make fun of role players, but truly they are very creative people. And a lot of people, maybe some people watching this, lack creativity for roleplay. Okay, so how about Battlegrounds? I think Battlegrounds it's alright. Like, it's just, you can play either for kills or for objectives, whatever. You can have fun. It does get a little sweatier the more you win, or the more your hidden MMR goes up. And then you get pitted against the same old people, the same sweaty people at a certain point. Or it takes a really long time to queue sometimes for Battlegrounds matches, depending on the type of Battlegrounds they're promoting. So it's alright. I mean, inherently, PvP within the scope of Battlegrounds where your CP is disabled and so on, it's not too difficult. And of course, you can team up with other people in comms, so I'd say it's alright. Alright, so we have something here. We have housing. Alright, I would say housing is very hard. Housing? Why is it very hard? Well, I think a lot of people genuinely think they're good at housing in terms of like decorating, furnishing, or whatever their residence. But the truth is, most of you fucking suck. But I'm like lightly joking on that one. But there are really amazing creations or cobbles or arrangements people have made in housing over the years. And I think it takes not just a lot of the imagination that you presume is required for some of those creations, but also you also have to be very familiar with what's available to you in terms of furnishings. So that probably takes some extent of a encyclopedic mind to kind of go through the furnishings. You don't know exactly how big they are maybe initially, and then you have to figure it all out. So yeah, housing, I'd say very hard for sure. All right, what's next? We have Oh, grinding to max level. Grinding to 3,600 champion points. My girlfriend's staring over there at me. All right. So, as someone who has grinded to max level or 3,600 champion points, I'm going to say this. I'm going to say it's It's not hard. It's just a matter of time investment. I'm tempted to just put this into need consciousness because at a certain point, you're kind of a zombie depending on how hard you're grinding, and you just kind of like mindlessly you're just grinding. There's no real skill to it unless there's some things with Black Rose Prison Grind might require a semblance of consciousness. So yeah, I would put this somewhere between inside or need consciousness. So if you want to grind the max CP, it's not hard. It's just a matter of time, maybe resources depending on how you want to grind for it in terms of master writs. But other than that, it's not too hard, and I personally wouldn't recommend it to just anyone. All right, so what's next? Cyrodiil. Cyrodiil in terms of a zone and PvP. Yeah, need consciousness. I feel like you can't just. I mean, you could AFK in Cyrodiil, and people have even during fights. But I think in terms of exploration, because it is a PvE zone at this point. And not a PvP zone, you still need to be conscious to like move your mount and get to point A or point B and do things, or whatever people do in Cyrodiil these days, or stand on a ram. Make sure you're standing on a ram if you're sieging, or running away from a ball group. So yeah, I mean, you need consciousness for Cyrodiil. And I don't know if it's difficult. I guess it really depends. If you're gonna seriously PvP in a small group or as a solo PvPer against larger groups or more people, outnumbered, then yeah, I'd probably put that almost impossible. But as a zone itself, as a PvP mode, that's really accessible to a lot of people, I would just say it's not too hard. It's not too difficult to get in the swing of things. But mentally, I mean, it could definitely be almost impossible. All right, so what else do we have here? Pugging. So like the random group finder. I guess this really depends on normal versus veteran queues, but this really depends too, like mentally. It just comes down to like sometimes you get great people, sometimes you won't. It's just the nature of the queue finder, the group finder. So our random normals could probably AFK for, or need some sort of consciousness for it, but I'll put it aside just because of the whole veteran thing. All right, let's see. What's here? Scribing. I think in terms of like grinding scribing or grinding for the eggs, you can AFK for it. Like you can AFK the quest line, you can like just kind of mindlessly slog through, harvesting those right now for luminous inks if you really want it. In terms of theory crafting though, I mean, that's going to require a little bit more than just being awake. So it could be its eye or it could be AFK. But for now, we'll put it in terms of its eye. Okay, so we have trading. This is a hard one. Is it hard to sell things? Is it hard to find things to sell? Can be. I think it's hard to start trading. I think that's like a major hurdle for a lot of ESO players in this game. Trading. I would say it's somewhat difficult because a lot of people tend to just kind of put random listings on, even in some smaller trade guilds. And also, I think a lot of people don't optimize trading. So I think it can be somewhat difficult to not just get into trading, but to actually optimize how to trade or how to flip things, right? Obviously, there will also be a sort of learning curve here. Okay, so next one. Guild management. All right, that's pretty easy. Almost impossible. I'm going to ask you this, honestly. You ever look for a guild that's active and you're like, man, these guilds that say they're active, they're not very active, actually, in reality. Okay? And then, now imagine that, but from the perspective of someone who has to manage that guild. And also, if anyone could even help around with that guild. I think guild management is probably one of the most underappreciated fields in ESO. I think this can go for any game, really, that has a guild system or a clan system. So I would say almost impossible, especially without any help. Trying to do it all by yourself, you're gonna burn out really hard. But yeah, I'd say it's almost impossible. Speaking of which, finding an active guild, also almost impossible. Okay, sure. When I mean active, I don't mean like, there are people online. I mean like actually people who interact with one another. I think, especially on PC, where voice chat is gated behind like Discord servers and other things, like interactions behind Discord servers, I think there is definitely a sort of gate to overcome if you want to not just interact with people, but also for them to interact with you fully. And not everyone looks at in-game guild chat when they're doing things, so I think it's almost impossible to find an active guild, even when they advertise, "Hey, we're really active, we're not racist," and so on, so on, so on, so on. So interesting. And I'm sure, I'm not saying there's no active guilds or there's no great guilds out there. There are, but it will take time, especially if you're a newer player or returning player, to find a community you vibe with, for sure. But it's worth it. All right, let's see. What else do we have here? Okay, zone chat. Honestly, you could totally ignore zone chat, so you could put AFK. But if you want to engage with certain zone chats at certain times of day, depending on your platform or server, it could be very impossible, or very hard, or very just nauseating, depending on what the subject they're talking about. So I'll just put it under AFK, because you could totally ignore it. But yeah, all right, forums. Honestly, this is the real endgame PvP here. You want to go to the forums and get your threads derailed by other users, and just end up arguing about blah 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 with user 076. Yeah, okay, so it's pretty impossible. It's pretty hard. It's pretty hard 1vxing on the forums. It really is. So yeah, I'm gonna put that almost impossible. And who knows, maybe because you end up arguing with someone, you could get banned by banned from the forums, or given a stern warning, as many people have been. But yeah, I'd say forums. Over the years, I feel like there were really good nuggets or sources of information about the game posted by certain users, but over time, it feels now more like a place to vent or PvP each other, or to get some other kind of like information, or maybe attempt to contact customer support through the devs. So yeah, I mean, at your peril, depending. All right, so let's see what else is here. Post 2022 dungeon content. I'm gonna say it's side in terms of difficulty. It's. I think there are, even Coral Airy hard mode, I think there are ways to like mitigate it, like Arcanist, in terms of like difficulty. So I'm gonna say it's not. It could be it's side or somewhat difficult, right? And this includes things like Ascending Tide, DLC dungeons, or even like the more recent ones for the Necrom, the Year of Necrom. So I'd say it's I mean, and I think over time dungeons have become increasingly more fun in terms of like engagement and interaction with certain mechanics, or buffs that they grant you if you do secret bosses or find secret things. So it's okay. Now, how about dungeons before 2022? Yeah, you could probably AFK a lot of these like DLC dungeons before 2022, or just kind of slog through if you're awake. Yeah, a lot of the content has not aged well with the power creep as of 2024. So you'd be fine. I really don't like. I think the hard part is going to be finding a group, a consistent group, or other people interested in doing the same things you want to do. But as for the content itself, I think it's whatever. All right. So let's see what else is here. Imperial City. I think this has to do with the zone and the PvP. Imperial City. Man, I think for sure, just because of the nature of the PvPvE aspect of Imperial City, I'm gonna actually put it at somewhere between its side or somewhat difficult, honestly. But I'm gonna put it as its side. I mean, it's barely above Cyrodiil because it can get active depending on the times or depending on the events, and it's much more of a confined space. So there's also in some districts, there's not a lot of line of sight for PvP, and also if you're a PvEer, you are very prone to being seen and targeted, especially if you need to quest there or whatever. So yeah, Imperial City, and of course there's an element of loss with Telvar stones if you care about that. And mentally, I think that's a bit more taxing than going to Cyrodiil and dying over and over and not losing anything. All right, so what's next here over here? Oh, carries. Okay, so this is a controversial topic. Carries, selling runs for people to get their loot or gear, rather. Selling achievements, essentially. I'm not gonna put that almost impossible. I'm not gonna put that very hard either. Like, this is doing carries from the perspective of, I guess you could say from the perspective of buying carries and also doing carries, but I'm looking at this mostly from the perspective of someone who actually performs the tasks for the consumer. Okay, it's not very hard to do carries. It's not even somewhat difficult to do carries. Honestly, you could probably AFK for carries. And let me explain. This is gonna sound really weird, okay? But for carries, whether it's trials or dungeons, typically the people you work with already know their shit. So there's not really much of a need to progress or prog. That's not the point. You're providing a service. So it's actually easier to pug or to do content as a carry group because everyone there knows what to do and what do shit. If you are looking at this from the perspective of a raid lead who has to organize a carry run, you really don't have to call out a lot of things because everyone knows what to look out for, or even supports know when to horn or when to colossus depending on the content. Yeah, I mean, you can literally AFK carries. I have AFK carries, to be honest with you. Yes. All right. Next one is buying crowns or just engaging with the crown store. Very hard. First, you need a job or some sort of like source of income to buy crowns, and then you have to avoid certain things in the crown store. And I think I might put this at almost impossible because once people get in that kind of like gamba crates and in the crown crates, it's hard to break a gambling habit. You know what I mean? To buy crowns. Also, like there's a lot of when I say crown store, I think there's a lot of things also to do with the monetization model of ESO that makes things easier, right? Pay the convenience, like plus, ESO Plus back. I salute the people who don't have ESO Plus but can still organize their inventory and all that. So, yeah, I mean, I almost impossible to avoid crowns in some sense if you really want to optimize certain things. So anyway, what else is here? Yes, this one. Yep, this is very easy. Being a content creator for ESO, I mean, after you've done everything, or after you've kind of, played the game as a player, well, what else is there if you want to keep playing the game? Because obviously it will be boring. And let me tell you, playing as a content creator or covering the game as a content creator is completely different in terms of experiencing it as a content creator, as opposed to just being a player or just being a gamer. Now, how hard is it? You just need consciousness, honestly. You just need to be awake. Can you edit some videos or have some editing skills? Yeah, go for it. Can you record? Go for it. Are you illiterate? Can you read patch notes out loud to people? Go for it. For ESO, I mean, that's really it. That's really it. You just need to read tooltips, have some basic algebra skills, and you just need to be awake. It's not too bad. But it does come with its own mental challenges sometimes. If you're a content creator who really wants people to pay attention or learn or whatever, and actually watch past the first 20 seconds of a YouTube video or whatever, yeah, almost impossible. But if you just want to do it for fun, or you just do it because you just do it, yeah, you just need to be awake. So it could vary, right, depending on what you want to do in terms of content. All right, last things, and of course, I say the best for last. Trials, and this is the 12-man raid content you can do in PvE for ESO. So Craglorn Trials will start from the oldest one, the Halra Citadel, Sanctum Ophidia. We have Ethereal Archive. You just need to be awake. That's really it at this point. I mean, these trials came out in like 2014 and 2015 respectively. It's not very normal vet hormone, whatever, doesn't really matter. Maw of Lorcaj is what came out next, and even Maw of Lorcaj, I feel like you just need to be awake for it. Depending on your group's damage, of course. It's like it could be hard maybe, but I don't think so anymore. Okay, what else is next? Halls of Fabrication. Yeah, I'd say it's need consciousness, but I'm gonna change my mind here actually. I'm gonna actually move all of these trials to very hard. And I'm gonna start from here actually. Let me explain what I'm doing here. I'm putting all these trials in very hard as a standard like baseline, because the hardest part of ESO content, or even ESO endgame content like trials, is not the content itself. The difficulty is getting people who won't flake out on you, or people who show up for raid, people who are actually dedicated to running however many hours a week to get the achievement or complete a run or get the skin. It's very, very hard to find people who would want to re-lead. It's pretty hard to find someone like 1,100 people who can do what you can do, what you want to do at the same time on the same day every week until you get something. Yeah, it's just very hard. It's very hard. Now, we're going to start from this baseline. Assuming you somehow found the group, okay? Craglorn, you just need to be awake. Maw, you just need to be awake. Halls of Fabrication, where's Halls of Fabrication? Oh, it's over here still. Okay, you just need to be awake for that. What came after Halls? Well, we got Asylum Sanctorium. Asylum has not aged well. But you still need to move around and stuff, and also you need to kind of be aware a bit more than awake. So I think we'll put it at, I think I'll still put it at Need Consciousness. Okay, what came after Asylums? Cloud Rest. I think I'm gonna put it at its side. I think it's a little bit above Asylum in terms of difficulty, assuming you have a group for it. So yeah, after Cloud Rest, we have the 2019 trial from 2019 trial from Sunspire. So this is like Godslayer or Killing the Stray Dragons and whatever you want to do in Veteran Sunspire or Sunspire Hard Mode or even normal Sunspire for loot, for gear. I'd say this is actually just it's also you need to be awake. It's somewhere there. How about 2020's trial, Kind's Aegis? You could AFK. Okay, like if you can do Oaken Soul trifecta in Kind's Aegis, you can just AFK. That's basically it. The APM needed for Kind's Aegis is not very high at all. If you know what's going on, that's really it. It all comes down to time. There's no degree of difficulty here, really, when it comes to some of these trials. It's all just time. Except I'll talk about one here shortly. 2021, Rockgrove. I think when we're talking about the need to coordinate 11 other people besides yourself, I think Rockgrove is still somewhat difficult. So I'll put it in somewhat difficult. Okay. This is the current difficulty. And after Rockgrove, of course, in 2022, we got Dreadsail Reef. I'm going to put Dreadsail Reef at, assuming you have a group that, may or may not fall apart at the first sign of progression or flake out or whatever. I think Dreadsail Reef is, in terms of like trifecta or hard mode clears, for a lot of the player base, still almost impossible. Still very hard. Not saying you can't do it, but you will probably struggle initially a lot. That'll probably demotivate a lot of people. And if you're going for a trifecta, expect a lot of roster prog. And yeah, I would put that at almost impossible. Let's see, Lucent Citadel, Insanity's Edge, the two newest trials, one from 2023 and one from this year. Sanity's Edge, you just need to be awake. Lucent Citadel, it's alright. I don't know. It could be somewhere between somewhat difficult or it's I don't know. It really depends on your group at this point, right? But personally, I would just put it at its side. Last one, Scalecaller Peak. This is only for those of you who are not bread-eating Dutch people like Lucked. Scalecaller Peak, if you're not Lucked, you can AFK it, honestly. You can solo it easily. It's whatever. Just go in there with your overland build. But that's it. That's really it. Obviously, I had a lot of jokes here, but this is what I honestly think is easy or difficult in terms of content. Now, this is obviously skewed by my own experience level. So let me know what you guys think.